Hi everyone, I'm so glad you could join us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Teacher Melanie from St. John's United Church of Christ in Nazareth, and I'm so excited to spend this time with you. Remember, this is a recorded video and you can pause and rewind at any time. For today's lesson, you'll need the following supplies. You'll need coloring page, the maze page, and your pickup supply kit, which was this right here. Crayons or markers, paint if you like, scissors, glue, and a stapler. Okay, so I have a question for you. When you get a craving for fruit, what do you crave? Do you crave a nice shiny red apple? Or do you crave a brown, hairy looking kiwi? Do you crave a nice bright banana? Or a spiny looking prickly pear? Well, some fruits are beautiful and some are just not. But they all have the same sweet flavors and they all have the same nutritious vitamins as apples and bananas. It doesn't matter what they look like, they're delicious. God provides us many ways and God provides for us in many ways and sometimes very unexpected ways. He wants us to have faith that no matter what our circumstances, He will meet our needs. It may not come in a way we expect, but when the unexpected happens, our faith can grow, knowing that this is God showing us His awesome power. Whatever needs you may have today, God knows before you even ask. Trust Him with your needs, and God will provide, maybe in a way you never saw coming. So we've been talking about fish. We've talked about fish several times during this series of lessons. And those who like to fish may not realize that people like me don't see, I really think your hobby is a little gross, to be honest with you. We already mentioned that fishermen have to take live, gross worms and jab them into a metal hook, and then you throw the hook in there, and if you're lucky, you get a fish, or maybe not so lucky, I don't know. You're lucky, you get a fish, you pull that fish in, and it's all wet and slimy and smelly and ugh. So some folks fish for food, where they catch the fish, and then there's a lot of work they have to do to get the fish ready to be eaten. They have to cut it open, they have to take the scales off of it, they cut off their heads, and they have to get all the guts out of the fish before they make it, before they prepare it. That's pretty gross. But even these folks, some people like to just fish and throw them back. They fish for fun. But even then, you have to pull the fish in and touch it and get the hook out of them. And the fish is flapping around and flailing around. You have to get that fish back into the water. So there's no easy way. Today's Bible story is another fishy tale. But it's not about a big giant fish like Jonah and the whale. It's about a small fish. Today's story has a twist ending that's a little bit gross, but pretty neat. It's going to be from the book of Matthew, chapter 17, verses 24 to 27. Now, in this story, a group of men wanted to test and see if Jesus would pay a tax or an offering to the temple. This offering was paid voluntarily by all the Israelite men to keep up the temple. So some of the tax collectors who didn't like Jesus, and they were trying to cause trouble, came to Peter and asked, "Does Jesus pay the temple tax?" And Peter said, "Yes, he does." Then Peter went into the house where Jesus was, and Jesus had not heard what was being said between Peter and the tax collector. He was inside the house, they were outside. But he knew, because he's God and knows everything. He asked Peter a question. he asked, do kings collect taxes from their sons or from other people? Well, Peter said, from other people, not their sons. Now, think about it. Jesus is God's son, right? And the temple is God's house. So Jesus really didn't need to pay the temple tax, did he? But Jesus told Peter, so that we won't upset other people, I'll pay the tax. So, when it came time to pay the tax, Jesus told Peter, who was a fisherman, he liked to fish. He did that before he went with Jesus. He told Peter, go to the lake, throw out your fishing line, take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a coin. Well, Peter went and did just what Jesus said to do. He went to the lake, threw out his fishing line. When he caught the fish and opened its mouth, guess what? There was a coin in there. So, he went, he had just enough. The coin was just enough to pay the tax for Jesus and for Peter. So Peter took the coin and paid the tax. Now, how did Jesus know that the money would be there? Jesus knew the money would be there because what? Jesus is God. God knows everything. Jesus could do anything, could do things nobody else could do. So do you think Peter told his friends what happened? I bet he did. I bet he did. So this little story often gets overlooked when we talk about the Bible. I know I don't remember hearing about this story when in all the years I've been alive. This story really illustrates how God provides for people who have faith. The men who came to Peter, they wanted more than just the tax. They wanted to test Jesus to see if they could catch him contradicting himself. Peter, who truly had faith in Jesus, took his request right to Jesus, believing he would answer him. And did you notice that when Jesus knew what Peter was going to ask before he even asked the question? He already knew what Peter wanted, and he showed Peter by telling him before he could ask. Jesus knows all our thoughts, all our concerns, all our requests, but he still wants us to come and ask. Like Peter, we need to submit our requests to the Lord, expecting an answer. So instead of Jesus giving Peter the coin and just say, here, pay this, you can just pay this, Jesus asked Peter to take action. So Peter had to do something in order to get his request answered. He had to go catch a fish, and he had to look for the coin in the fish's mouth. Sometimes God answers prayers by asking us to take action. Yet another step of faith. Peter did as Jesus requested, and sure enough, there was a coin in the fish's mouth. Now, the other thing that I like about this story is that Jesus answers the request by telling Peter to go do something that he absolutely loved. He loved to fish. He was a fisherman. This was something he enjoyed. So Peter probably smiled and maybe laughed about it and thought, oh, goody, I get to go do some fishing, and then he gets his request answered. There's nothing pretty about in the inside of a fish's mouth, but this gross story shows us that when we take our requests to God, not only will he answer them, he will do so in a way that gives us greater faith and greater joy. Whatever needs you may have, God knows them already. You can pray and give them to God today, and he will answer. It may not happen in any way you expect, but it will put a smile on your face. In your packet or email that you received, there's a page, small group discussion. And the first question, and boy, do I wish we were together for this. What's the grossest thing you've ever had to touch? I would love to know your answers. I was trying to think of answers for myself, And the only one the one I could think of is cleaning out the refrigerator and coming upon something that you might open up the container and like, I don't know what this is. That's pretty gross. And then there's also another group at game activity where everyone gurgles like a fish. I would have liked to have seen that as well. So you can read that with your moms and dads, and some questions to answer about the story. And then there's also a PowerPoint review game that's a true and false question and answer that maybe mom and dad can play with you. And also the Make It Stick page. I like this one because they give you activities to do throughout the week about the story. So that's neat. We have some crafts to do. We have a coloring page of Peter catching the fish, and there's the coin dropping into his hand. Well, he was lucky he didn't have to go into the fish to get it. And then there's another one, there's a maze where Peter's in the boat with his fishing line coming down, and you've got to find where that fish is that has the coin. And he's all the way down the bottom of the page. So see if you can find him. And there's another one here I have to laugh at, this picture up here of Peter getting the coin out of the fish. He almost had to tackle that fish to get that coin out of there on that picture. And then also the craft we have is a fish. Now I gave you sent along a little packet. It's got the plates in it, the coin, and there are eyeballs in here, wiggly eyes. So you can use that, and you can just take the two plates and staple them together and cut out a triangle right here for the mouth, and then paste or tape or staple or whatever the back fin, and then you can color it. Do whatever you like with it. Decorate it in any way you want. You can paint, markers, crayons, and then when you're finished, take a wiggly eye and paste it on, and then you can paste on the side fin. And then you have your coin that you can decorate any way you want, and you can act out the story. Tell the story and show how Peter could pull out the coin and give to the tax man. I didn't do the other side, but you can. You can decorate the other side too. Make it like a mobile or a picture. And there's also instructions as well. We also have our memory verse, which we've done for several weeks, from Psalm chapter 145, verse 3. Lord, you are great. You are really worthy of praise. No one can completely understand how great you are. This story really shows that, doesn't it? The fact that the coin was in the fish's mouth is, you can't understand it. There's no way that you can really understand how that happened. And that's because of God being so worthy of our praise and so great. Okay. We're going to end our time together with a little prayer. If we could bow our heads and close our eyes. Dear God, thank you for knowing our needs before we even ask. Amen. So next week, be sure to join us when Teacher Carol will be talking to us about a piggy plunge. Thank you for joining me this Sunday, and have a blessed and safe week, and we'll see you next time. We love you guys so much and miss you.